Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of God is Not a Theory with Ken Fish. I'm your host, Grant Pemberton, and today I get the honor of just chatting with Ken. And we were talking about doing a recording for you all today, and he mentioned that he was doing a training on the Orbis Prayer Network that he leads through his site. And so I didn't know about it, and I wanted to pick his brain. I thought maybe you guys might want some information about that too. So Ken, what is this? I haven't heard you talk about this before. What's up? What's up with the Orbis Prayer Ministry? Am I saying it right? Orbis Prayer Ministry Network?
Yep, that's it. Orbis Prayer Ministry Network.
What is it?
Well, it's sort of the brain trust that we came up with because we are having an exploding exponential growth in demand for prayer ministry. And I mean, I get to the people I can get to, but I have, as we were discussing before we started recording, I have at least 6 other hats I'm expected to wear besides praying for everything that moves. And so we have asked the students who are in our school, Orbis School of Ministry, if they would like to effectively do an internship. They've said yes. Now they're taking courses that I've prepared and written and that I teach. And then through various means, and we can go into it if you'd like to talk about it more, but we are trying to give them supervised training and to grow them into effective, productive people who move. We say prayer ministry, but we're really talking about signs and wonders as a category. We want people who are, able to function as Jesus functioned. And so we are launching it, I think, if we don't have any further delays, and there have been quite a few, we are launching it next week. And this will give an opportunity for people anywhere in the world to get prayer from our team. I will do some praying in those prayer rooms, but people can't request any particular prayer minister, including me. It's just whoever they get assigned when they show up for their prayer appointment. And we can take on, inner healing, physical healing, deliverance, prophetic ministry. And we're very excited about it. And our students are very excited about it. And a lot of them have really gotten to be very, very good and effective at the things that they do. So this is going to expand the opportunity for people to get prayer ministry if they don't have anywhere near them that they would like to go to. And one of the things that I'm particularly happy about is we're not charging anything for this. Now, obviously, we will take donations. And, the scripture says a worker is worthy of his hire. But if people don't have the wherewithal to pay, that doesn't mean they can't get prayer.
No, that's amazing. Honestly, like, if you're listening to this or watching this, I really didn't know about this. And I've been pestering you for years about this. So I'm super excited about that. So is it, I guess it's online, like some sort of Zoom type prayer?
Yeah. And we've had to buy a lot of very expensive software, not only for scheduling, but for security, so that anyone who comes, into our prayer rooms, there'll be a recording made, but we have, there's this level of encryption that like spy agencies and, the State Department, people like that use. Well, that's not even available commercially, so we can't get that. But we have the highest level of encryption available, and we're holding those files basically behind a double firewall to prevent hacking. And the reason, and by the way, all those files are encrypted beyond that, so even if they were hacked, they wouldn't be usable. And the reason we're doing that is if there's ever a question or a dispute about what was said or done in a prayer session, there'll be a recording of it. But beyond that, everything will be held in strictest of confidence. And so, we think people should feel very comfortable and confident being able to come in and talk about, whatever is on their mind. And each session will be about an hour long. We're targeting an hour. I say about an hour because we might finish sooner if we get a breakthrough event, or maybe it'll go a little bit longer than that. And we have made provision for that to happen. And if people need to book a second or a third appointment later on, that's also available to them. We're not we're not trying to make people, what do you want to say, dependent on us, but we are trying to create an environment where people who are really interested in having an encounter with God that will be restorative and healing to them, it's available at no charge other than whatever donation they might want to make, if they do it all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so just to catch everyone up with the what I call the kin problem is that kin has that what Malcolm Gladwell calls the 10,000 hour thing. And Ken has prayed, I mean, I think we've talked about it before, but thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people all over the world for all kinds of things. And in doing that, Ken has learned what we kind of call the best practices of like what works and how to see this stuff come to fruition, and it's created. It's probably why you're listening to this, is that, I mean, when that's what everybody says, when Ken prays, stuff happens. And so it's getting that knowledge out of his brain and into other people that can pray effectively. And as someone else who's been privy to that and who's spent time with you and all of that, I can confidently say that without a doubt, like, I mean, if I approach an issue that needs people that need to be prayed for, like, we're going to see breakthrough. But I credit that to being able to draft off of your experience and your, all of that sort of stuff, for sure. I mean, people are getting healed of all kinds of things. People are getting breakthrough of all kinds of things, especially, at our church and around that. And it's mostly because, like, well, Ken said one time that this usually is caused by this or whatever. And then we just kind of go after it, and it's like, sure enough, yeah, it was that. And I even mentioned this in a sermon a couple weeks ago. Just one of your little things that works. Like, hey, if there's something wrong with the stomach, like, it's usually because of this thing. Well, that's just because it's not because you're magic, and it's not because you have a special connection with God that no one else can have. It's because you've prayed for probably 1,000 or 1,500 people that have these stomach issues, and you've just noticed, like, man, it's usually related to this. And so I'm thrilled to know that there's a multiplication thing that's happening, and that people can begin to draft off of your experience and your knowledge. And so
Well,
that's exciting.
in addition to the school where we're training people, and in addition to the prayer network where we're deploying those people, the other thing is I am, by bits and bobs, getting books together that are going to make it into the market. My book, A Modern Day Diary of Signs and Wonders, should get published next year if I can find half a day or maybe a little more to sit down and finish making some edits to the book and then get it into the publisher. They've basically said they're going to take it. So it's not a question of that. It's just I'm the gating problem, because as I was said a few minutes ago, I wear 7 hats, and I just can't. I mean, I just manage by triage, except in this case it's more like septage, and it's hard to do. But anyway, those books will hopefully memorialize some of the thinking that I have on various topics of healing and whatnot. And I just have to tell this story. It's sort of off topic, but not completely off topic. I was in Lubbock, Texas this weekend, and there was a woman present who had come from Denver, Colorado, and her friend had brought her from Denver. I'd never seen her before, but I did notice her in the crowd, and I thought, I think I'm supposed to pray for that woman. Well, as the meeting, just as it developed, it seemed like it was a good meeting, maybe to do a demonstration in. And I asked her if she would be willing to be prayed for in front of the room. She said, I would do anything to get prayed for. I don't care. And I said, well, are you willing to talk about whatever comes up? She goes, I'll talk about anything. Well, she had a very difficult and, shall I say, graphic story, that many people were in the audience crying as they were hearing her talk about her history. And we shut off the web stream and the recordings when we did this because, I mean, even though it was done in front of the room by her consent, I didn't think it was appropriate to be blasting it out all over the entire, internet. So anyway, but she had systemic pain in her body and nothing helped it. She'd been on pain medication for at least 15 years, really strong pain medication. And no matter what she did, sitting, standing, walking, lying down, she was always in chronic pain throughout her body. She had severe stomach distress and food disorders and several other problems. And when she came to the front for prayer, even though she was only 31 years old, she limped like you would see an elderly person who's using a walker, except she didn't have a walker. But she could hardly take a step without groaning and moaning and, bent over. It was really a sight to see. It was one of the most spectacular and dramatic deliverances I've ever seen. And I've seen quite a few. And, we had the requisite trash can and, she was hurling into it. But a lot of the people in the room had never actually seen an actual genuine deliverance. And again, I wasn't trying to make her a spectacle. And I would say the atmosphere in the room was quite respectful. Reverential would be the wrong word, but respectful. And at several points, she put her head back and, kind of thing. And at a few points, the demons were speaking out and arguing about how they would not leave. And you could clearly hear that. And so people were sort of like, whoa, what is that? But anyway, we got these demons out, and she was walking perfectly at the end of the prayer session. And the next morning on Sunday, I saw her after the service, and I asked her how she was doing. And she said, for the first time since my early teenage years, I did not take any pain medication this morning, and my body is totally pain-free. I don't need it anymore. I mean, it was just such a spectacular healing. And, this is the kind of thing that I think we need. We need it for the benefit of the people. Let's start with that. People are not props. We don't use them as a shill to build a ministry or a reputation, which is why I said shut off the stream, and why we're not making anything available other than just this sort of reporting of it. But so that's number one, that people who are in agony and pain and grief can find relief from that. But it's also a demonstration that we're not kidding, that God is not a theory, which of course is the name of this podcast, and that he really has breakthrough capability and is willing to deliver it to those who are afflicted and distressed. And what we're hoping with our prayer network, back to that, is to expand the reach and be able to bring this kind of help to people who are in need. And ultimately, of course, from the rising of the sun to the going down of the same, the name of the Lord will be praised, because, word of these sorts of healings gets out. Look what happened when Jesus delivered the man in the graveyard in Mark chapter 5. When he returned over to that side of the lake, 3 chapters later in Mark 8, a crowd of 4,000 men and presumably a comparable number of women and all of their children showed up. So this might have been a meeting of 20 or 30,000 people. And they stayed with him 3 days in the wilderness, apparently not eating, because Jesus said they have nothing to eat and we need to feed them or they'll faint on the way home. They were that enthralled. They were that captivated. And we keep talking about a great revival. I think it's maybe not the key to revival, but it is one of the keys to revival.
I mean, absolutely. And that was the thing that struck me about you, Ken, and I think I've told you this in private, so I can tell you this in public here, is that, as a pastor of a church, a growing church in Nashville, you get to know a lot of people that are in the business, so to speak, of Christian ministry. And, I'm a cynical person by nature. And so I'm usually wary of those kinds of people. And the thing that struck me for you was that I saw you pray for this person that you didn't know, that I knew, but I didn't ask you to pray for them when you came to our church. I think you prayed for them for like an hour, and I just couldn't believe it. Like, I hadn't prayed for that person for an hour, and they go to my church, and you actually care about people, and you really do. I mean, to be honest with you, I think I've told you this too. Like, you care a little bit too much, because all of these people come to you because there's nowhere else they can go. And there's a lot of great ministries out there. There's a lot of all of that sort of stuff. And I had experienced all of it, but I'd never seen it actually work until I met you. And it was all talk and great sermons, and maybe somebody had a word of knowledge or whatever. But I'd never seen that life changing power kind of on display until you and I crossed paths. And so, because of that, people go to where they actually get their prayers answered. Not so much, anything else. And I know from our conversations, you're inundated. Like, you can't pray for everyone that wants to come, and even though that I know that you want to, and it's probably not the best use of your time. And so this network, I imagine, will be a way that people can begin to get prayer, because I know I don't pray as good as you do yet, but I know I pray better than a lot of people, and it's because I've spent time with you, and I've asked you questions, and we've prayed together, and I've seen it work. And so I love the idea of being able to have this out there. And you say that you don't charge, and people might laugh at that or whatever, but there are places that do charge
I know.
for that, and so that's why you're saying that. And I'll tell you, like, to actually get effective prayer, most of the time you're talking a couple hours, maybe a couple different sessions, maybe a total of 10 or 15 hours, depending upon how deep this root thing goes. And that's real time. Like,
Yeah.
that's time that's keeping you and whoever's doing that from doing other things. And so there really is that issue of, man, I mean, so I mean, this, I know this. We've prayed for people maybe a total of 40 hours until, bam, we finally get to that thing that breaks it loose. So I'm excited. I really didn't know about this until tonight. So that's
Well, one of
fun.
the guys that's helping me launch it is a surgeon, and he went. Well, he's no longer a surgeon, but he's still licensed as a surgeon, but he's not practicing. And he basically got pulled out of the field of medicine because in a meeting that I was leading, he had himself a torn rotator cuff. I almost said dislocated shoulder. He had a torn rotator cuff, and he knew he had it, and he knew that it was going to be, surgery and weeks of recovery and lots of lost income. And this guy was a 7-figure a year type surgeon. This is not some, starting out in the business. He went to Harvard and, so forth. Anyway, so he's helping me get this thing off the ground. He was so impacted by his own healing that it didn't happen immediately, but over a period of some months, I guess a couple of years, he ultimately left the field of medicine and has entered the Christian ministry and is getting a Master of Divinity degree. Prior to this, he always thought that, the best way he could serve Jesus was to be, a surgeon and guide my hands and maybe go to the mission field now and then and do some medical missions. And, he's really jumped in with both hands, so to speak, and both feet. And, he has himself become a very credible signs and wonders guy, but prayer minister has a softer sound to it than signs and wonders, but ultimately that's what it is. So anyway, he's helping me get this thing launched, and he said, Ken, this what we're doing here is just like what they do in medical school. The students have taken the courses, and in medical school you take the courses, and then you go to residency where you do what you do under supervision. And back to what you said from Malcolm Gladwell, takes about 10,000 hours to become, truly an expert at something. This is part of their training, and, they'll be coached and critiqued in what they're doing to bring them to a higher level of effectiveness. And, little by little, and I don't want to make it sound like we have a particular date certain in mind, but little by little, we're essentially building out what amounts to the spiritual equivalent of a medical faculty. And
Right.
and the idea is we want to train more and more people. We want them to come to our school, learn to do this. And I wish I could say this was all original ideas. I mean, some of how we're doing it is original, I guess, but a lot of the concepts are things that I learned years ago from John Wimber. And I don't know why, but I was just completely captivated with this. I was captivated with the idea of divine healing and deliverance and seeing people's lives changed. And I've told the story elsewhere, but when my own mother got healed of sores in her mouth that nobody could even diagnose, let alone cure, right in front of my eyes, and they literally vanished in about, I don't know, 30 to 60 seconds. I wasn't, sitting there watching my watch, but it was in that range. I was completely hooked, and there was no going back. And I really believe that most of the answers to the world's problems are found in the Lord. And
Mm.
of course, many of those things we find in the Word of God, which even Christians today don't really read that much or pay that much attention to. Um, and certainly in wider society, there was a time when even if people didn't really believe in the Lord or have much reverence for Him, the Word of God was being used in society. It was part of the common speech and language. So people had some familiarity with all that. But in our time, that's not really the case. And we're becoming a more and more secularized society. And honestly, the more secularized we become, the more screwed up we become. And so, I look at all this and I think, well, centuries ago, the prophet Jeremiah said, Jeremiah 6:16, no, sorry, 6:14, prophet and priest are alike in this, they heal the wounds of my people lightly.
Mm.
And then Jesus comes along and he didn't heal the wounds of people lightly. He healed them thoroughly and completely. And people were so completely captivated with him that great crowds followed him from beyond the Jordan and all Syria and from Tyre and Sidon. So all these areas that weren't even Jewish, people were like, who is this guy? We want to find out about him. We want to partake of what he's got to offer. And I think God's plans really haven't changed all that much. And
Yeah.
so if we can get back to a model of ministry that looks pretty much like that, I think it's going to have comparable exponential effect.
Well, I mean, it makes me think of. I'm just sitting here thinking of the Keteb prayer, the COVID
Yeah.
prayer, and everybody knew this COVID thing was not from the Lord, right? It's from
Right.
the enemy,
Right.
and all of the church was like, we got to do something about it, and they took a lot of different paths. But then, you had just been studying scripture, and found this thing about Keteb, started trying it, and lo and behold, it works.
Right.
And it's that sort of thing of saying, I think the scriptures are real. I don't think they're theories. I don't think they're for something else, but they're
Old
real.
poems that we should just
Right,
take as metaphorical literature.
right. And you've done it. I've done it. I know thousands of people now have just rebuked Katab off of people that have COVID, and then boom, it's easy.
We've
Honestly,
had thousands of testimonies come in
yeah.
from all over the world, people who got healed. In my own experience of the many, I don't know if I prayed into the thousands, but many hundreds of people I prayed with using that prayer. I'm aware of 4 who died, and in none of those 4 cases was I able to pray exactly the way I wanted to. There was always something. It was in each of these 4 cases, there was something that wasn't quite the way I wanted to do it. And whether it was circumstance or the people themselves and their own, sentiments about things or family, whatever. Um, but everyone else that I prayed for with it got healed. And our
Yeah.
friend Josh, I mean, he was at the gates of death. And between you and Ben and me, we prayed for him over Zoom. We had to do it a couple times, but Josh is alive and kicking today, and he knows it's because of that.
I mean, and the
And he
doctors
was a
called
young guy.
his.
What is he, 37 years old?
Yeah, not even.
Yeah.
And like the doctors called his family and said, "Hey, he's dying, so uh, just make preparations." And he's actually he's going to be doing a healing night at our church at the end of the month, which is kind of fun. So
How about that?
I know it, but it's that kind of thing. It's like, nobody's doing this stuff, honestly. I mean, there's a lot of books being written. There's a lot of end times prophecy stuff people are talking about. There's a lot of like people wanting to do revival, but I mean, honestly, if I see any more revival, I don't have any bandwidth for it because it's already happening. It's here,
Right.
and it's just doing it. It's just putting this stuff into practice and actually doing it. And I think we just want to be passive and have revival happen to us or whatever. But the kingdom suffers violence, and violent people just take it by force.
Seize it.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and so it's like, I don't know. I think with you, Ken, I think that's why people probably are listening. I think that's why I know you travel an unbelievable amount of your time, and so you're supposed to travel. You're supposed to preach. You're supposed to write a book. You've got a doctoral program you're doing, and you're also supposed to pray for the thousands of people that want you to pray for them. And I know from being with you, it ain't just an hour. It's at least two, maybe three. And so I think this is a great way to be able to multiply and to see that happen. So how can people? When is this launching? Like, how do people find this?
So the prayer network is launching next week, unless again we hit a technical snag or something. But we thought we were going to launch in July, which became August, which became September. But I think we're finally here now. So they can go to orbisprayer.org, ORBIS prayer.org, or alternately, they can go to OPMN, if they can remember that, .org, OPMN for Orbis Prayer Ministry Network.org. Either one, they go to the same place, and people can sign up for an appointment, and they'll be given a time, generally 3 to 5 days out, and they'll have two prayer ministers who will meet with them on Zoom. Complete confidentiality. There's a short questionnaire they have to fill out in advance just to help us get focused and targeted and kind of get to things faster. And yeah, we're really excited about it. Our prayer ministers have been through our classes on healing, inner healing, prophetic ministry, deliverance, advanced healing. And we're about to launch a whole new round of classes. I'm just ready to sign the contracts for our next round of classes, and we're going to be offering some other things that are beyond just the technical skills of how we do this. We're trying to give people theological knowledge, and with it, hopefully some wisdom and perspective. And so actually, the longer this goes, the more well-rounded and capable I hope and pray that our students become. And, when I think about this, I think of things like the schools of the prophets that were founded by Samuel, continued under Elijah and Elisha in ancient Israel. I think of the cathedral schools of Alcuin of York, who raised up people who went throughout Europe preaching the gospel. And then I think of the Carolingian Renaissance and the schools that were raised up there. And that was starting in the year 910 in the monastery in Cluny, France. And that particular move of God continued onward for just almost 2 centuries and stopped only because of the launching of the First Crusade in 1098. And so, this idea of training people and multiplying is a critical tool in world revival. And so we care a lot about the individuals. And like I say, we don't use people as props and shills. But there is, just as Jesus did, when Jesus came and he had his ministry, John had first drawn huge crowds, but then it says Jesus was drawing even more crowds than John the Baptist. And of course, the reason is people, they don't always come for the best of reasons, wanting to say, oh, for the glory of God, and that, we could worship in his temple and we would know him face to face. When people come to the Lord, oftentimes they're saying, my life hurts, my life sucks. How do I get it to stop hurting? How do I get it to stop? How do I make it unsuck? All of that. People come with a lot of motives. But at the end of the day, when they are contacted by God's power and God's love, God's care, God's willingness to engage with them and to show that he's willing to get up off his throne and show them compassion, And
Hmm.
I'm when I say that, I'm paraphrasing the book of Isaiah. When people experience that, they're like, I'm in, I'm sold, I want this.
Yeah, no, that's so good. And I'm not on the payroll of Orbis Ministries or Kinfish Inc. or whatever it is, and but I can just say very plainly that you know there's a lot of schools, there's a lot of things, and if you want to go find yourself or find a girlfriend or boyfriend, there's great places you can go do that. But if you want to do the stuff, like if you want to actually like see the kingdom of God come, I wouldn't recommend anything more than what Ken is doing at Orbis. And Jesus said it: the harvest is plentiful, trained, experienced, knowledgeable workers are very few, very few, and um, it's a shame. The world is waiting for us to be the answer of prayer, and
Amen.
people nowadays don't necessarily believe they need to be saved. They don't believe that there's a hell. They don't believe all of those things that used to work maybe in some other time, but they sure do. They'll take prayer.
Yep.
Atheists will say, "Yeah, okay, give it a shot."
Yeah.
And because people have needs, people have felt needs, and can both you and I come from a business background, and like you want to be a successful business, you meet the felt needs of the people,
That's right.
and don't spend your time trying to convince them that they need something that they don't necessarily know they need. People know they need help. They know
Yep.
they're sick. They're someone they love is dying. Someone whatever. And you could literally change everything for those people. And not to mention, like when you start doing it, my wife and I did something. We had a prayer session with someone the other day, and they got touched. It was great, but then we got touched. We afterwards we just thought, man, it's so cool to see the Lord actually break in, and it's a huge faith booster, and it's just the best. It's once you start doing it, you won't want to do anything else, and so this is exciting. You and I have been talking about this for a long time, so I'm excited. I'm
Well,
excited for it to happen.
we're hoping that we'll have more prayer ministers join us. I think once the word gets out that this is available, as I say, great crowds came to Jesus from all over, and I imagine people will come. We're going to need more prayer ministers. So if people are interested in finding out how to get trained and to learn to do this, to move in signs and wonders, but again, that kind of has one sound to it, a certain vibe to it. We can just say prayer minister, that has a different vibe to it. But we are talking about a signs and wonders lifestyle for sure. If you want to see people like the woman that I just described, who was in Lubbock, Texas this past weekend, who'd come from Denver, if you want to see that sort of thing, that sort of dynamic, and you'd like to get involved with us, we would be happy to train you in our school and start getting you ready to be a prayer minister of that kind or a signs and wonders worker of that kind. You just need to go to orbissm.com to sign up for classes. Orbissm.com.
It's perfect. Cool. Well, listen, let's keep this one short because we're recording this. It is 10:30 my
Right.
time,
Yeah.
p.m. Because the other thing that Ken loves to do is he loves to keep this stuff fresh. It's not. I know you even re-record your schools, and to my chagrin, most of the time I'm like, Ken, let's just do an old episode. But you really, I mean, it's important to you to continue to meet the needs of the people. So it's late, and we'll wrap this. But I think if you're listening to this and if you need prayer and you're not seeing it happen, maybe you've gone down for prayer multiple times and it's just whatever, it hasn't happened. I would tell you to go here to Ken's prayer network, and if you want to do this stuff, which the world needs, it's actually your mission. It's your mandate. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cast out demons. That's what Jesus tells us we're supposed to do. Go to Orbis School of Ministry, sign up for a class, get started in this, and then start praying for people and start seeing it work. Get your
Amen.
own 10,000 hours, and
Amen.
it'll be good. Ken, Thank you so much. I know you literally just got off of a training session, and then we jumped on this thing. So I'm gonna let you go, but thank you, and thank you for doing this, and thank you for multiplying yourself, and thank you for doing the work that we get to stand upon, that we all get to kind of borrow. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Amen. Well, it's a pleasure to serve in the Lord's vineyard, and it's great to talk to you tonight, Grant. And I'll look forward to recording with you again next week.
We'll do it again. All right. And for those of you listening, thanks so much. And we're working diligently to bring you a fresh episode of God is Not a Theory with Ken Fish next week. Same time, same place.
We've recently updated the Orbis Ministries app with Ken's free teaching archive. You can click on the link in the description of this podcast to download today.